Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Companion. And I think this is really a deep one today. I think it's really going to touch a lot of people in different ways. My friend Amanda Russell and I are going to be talking about AI and education, AI and the implications for our children, even like in our own families. And before I get into that, I do want to recognize what a wonderful sponsor we have in Brevo. And gosh, we are in such a complicated world. If you think that marketing just feels like a hurricane to you, just check out Brevo. They are the world's leading CRM solution, and they've got so many great companies that they serve, but they are very reasonably priced, super easy to use, and will help you scale your business with the use of AI in a very smart way. You've got nothing to lose. In the show notes, there's going to be a link to their site, or you can remember to go to brevo.com/marketing companion. And you could try it for free. If you do decide to sign up, use companion as the promo code to save 50% on your first 3 months. So before we get into this topic, I do have sort of an interesting announcement. Improbably, I have just finished writing a new book. You may be wondering, that is just impossible. He just came out with Audacious. So here's what happened. I tried to take some time off this summer, and this idea for a book just was burning through my soul, and I couldn't get rid of it. Earlier this year, I participated in a research project with 300 futurists to answer the impossible question: how will AI change humanity by 2035? Now, nobody knows. However, if you have 300 experts immersed in this field come to some consensus on some things, we ought to pay attention to that. And if they think there are ways that AI is changing humanity, that means it's changing our customers, how they think, how they act, how they feel. We need to know that. And I just couldn't get this out of my mind. So I put together a small book. It's going to be out in a matter of weeks. I'm trying to do this in a more healthy way than my other books. And the reason I'm mentioning this now is obviously to give you a heads up that the book is coming, but also because the research I did for this book certainly informs our discussion today. So the way that Amanda and I decided to organize this is to first talk about our education. Amanda is quite a bit younger than me. She actually just celebrated a milestone birthday, but I won't mention that. If she wants to mention it, I'll let her do it. But as a gentleman, I won't. So we're talking about, hey, we went to college a long time ago. Does that still matter? Number two, what advice would we give for people today entering college in this transformational world of AI? And then third, the way we're going to break this down is Amanda has a young child, little more than 2 years old.
Not quite 2 years old.
Not quite two.
Yeah.
Okay. He's so big.
He's huge, I know, he's a
He's
tank.
huge. And he that throws me for a loop. And then I have a new grandchild.
Yeah.
My little baby boy is a little over 3 months, and I look at him and I say, what kind of world are you going to be into? And so we were going to talk about that today. So, man, let's start with our education. So, what we went through, and is that relevant today? So, why don't you kick it off, since I've been pontificating far too long here?
Yeah, I think when you talk about education, higher education, correct? College education.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
So, my college education for me was it taught me a lot. Nothing about not so much the actual knowledge itself, which I think is still relevant, but for
Mhm,
me it was a cultural experience. I was in a different country by myself.
mm,
Um, it was a very different kind of people that I didn't know existed. It was a very uh, wealthy private university where I had come from the middle of nowhere in Canada and didn't even understand, like, just it was entirely different breed. So, and I was also an athletic scholarship where I was in season all year round. So my education was a little bit different than I think the average experience for somebody in the US. But what it taught me more than anything was it didn't not how to think, but really how to stay in a situation or in a room when I didn't know the answers, and just definitely when I really felt uncomfortable and like I didn't belong. And I think it's natural that humans want to leave when we get uncomfortable, and or it's not like spelled out, or we think we don't belong. And I think that for me, my academic education taught me how to like there's other muscles that you can train that are mostly about figuring out how to finish something, how to stay in a room, how to understand the audience, how to get through something, how to make the best of it, how to stay curious when we really don't understand and you're confused. And for me, I think that's really what I gained mostly. And honestly, I will say this, Americans talk about their college education like it was the best 4 years of their life. I think mine was one of the hardest 4 years of my life, and I would never want to repeat it, but I'm so glad I did it.
ah, ah.
So, okay, yes. So that's
I
how I
think
think.
that's I think that's a really keen perspective that and I agree with you that a lot of the value of college is instilling confidence. It's maturing, as you said. It's like learning to do the hard things. You come up against obstacles in college that you never had as a young person. And I think, yeah, that's a really, really good insight. And really, AI is independent of that. I mean, the value that you got from your college education was relevant then, it would be relevant now.
What about
I,
you?
well, so I started out as a journalism major, and I ended up minoring in marketing. And I think it's relevant. Now, first of all, no one could have predicted back then that, hey, learning how to be a good writer would benefit Mark Schaefer decades later. But I think the real value was I had kind of a liberal arts education. So to be a journalism major, you've got to learn at least a little about a lot. So I took classes in political science and philosophy, and I remember I took classes in geology and biology and chemistry, and so I guess it sort of fed me as a curious person. And then I also say, um, like you, I got an MBA eventually. And look, I got that MBA many, many years ago, but that was important too because it validated for me how the business world works. And so I think my message is I took a very broad education, and that kind of taught me how the world works. And I think that's relevant today. And then I got an MBA that taught me how business works. And really, sure, AI is going to have a big impact on business. But look, when you're talking about innovation, the fundamentals of innovation, the fundamentals of leadership, the fundamentals of accounting or finance or law, that's not going to change in a massive way. So for me, learning how the world works, learning how business works, it still makes a difference. So I would say, as improbable as this might sound, I mean, I think my basic education all those decades ago, it did have a big influence on how I work today. Now, in terms of a young person going into college today, I mean, this is really a tricky question.
Mm.
And I know, Amanda, I mean, you've been part of our Rise community. We've had lots of speakers come into our Rise community who are in the middle of AI, who are in the middle of Silicon Valley. And almost every time we have one of these speakers come in, someone in the group asks them, well, what advice would you give to a young person going to college? And the answer every single time is, I don't know. I don't even know what advice to give my own children, these people have told us. And the only thing I can say, my advice would be go for it. Like, follow your passion, whatever it is, because we don't know how the world is going to work out. And I'll give you an example from my own life. So my son is a very, very brilliant guy. He could, just about do anything he would want to do in the world. Well, he got into music and he was a very talented musician. And halfway through his college education, he got a recording contract with a very well-known record company. And here was the conversation that no parent ever wants to have. I'll always remember this exact situation. I was in a hotel room in New York City. My son calls me up and he said, I got this record contract and I think I want to go for it. I think I want to have a career in a rock band. That's not what I wanted to hear. And here was and he said, Dad, I know this is a big risk. If things don't work out, I can always go back to school and, get a master's degree. And here's my response. Don't have a plan B. Do it. Don't leave anything on the table. Don't have any regrets. Go for it and don't look back. And I think in some ways that's sort of the risk that people are taking in this AI world. I mean, if I am super in love, if I want to be a writer and AI can create great writing, what am I doing? And my view would be, look, if that is your heart, if that's what you want to do, go for it and don't look back. Yeah, it's a risk. Almost any career is going to be a risk these days, but we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know what new career paths are going to emerge. And here's the other thing. My son had a very successful career as a musician, but then when he got burned out, he had to get off the road. He wanted to start a family and settle down. He started a career in the electronics business. He was an entrepreneur. He's creating electronics for the music industry. And he could never have had that career if he hadn't been in that band, if he hadn't learned the business. So, I think the only thing we could say to our children today is like, go for it. Just go for it because you don't know. What's your take on it, Amanda?
I think
I hope you disagree. Are you disagreeing?
no, I think it's an interesting perspective, but I kind of think that go for it is the only. I mean, I think that's been I think mantra for life is like whatever you're gonna do, put your 2 feet on the ground wherever you are. And like as you know, my background, I think that you do better when you don't have a security net. I often wonder if having a security net, I wouldn't have the same life I have now because I wouldn't have been as hungry. I wouldn't have been as resourceful. So I believe that regardless of when it comes to AI, I think I, I've thought a lot about this because I teach the younger generation, but then also I've got this son, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen to your gen? You're never going to know a time before AI. Like it's just going to be
Yeah.
part like by the time you're 4 years old, you're going to know. You're going
Yeah.
to
So like the kids, like you're actively teaching college age kids right now. So like, what are you instilling in them?
Well, the fear, I think the biggest fear is that AI makes people less human. And I actually think the opposite, which is that it actually makes us more human and it makes our role as teachers, mentors, parents, it makes our role more important than ever because we're going to have to teach the things that AI cannot teach, which and like which is not just learning how to use a computer or the internet, but like you've said this many times and it's always struck with me. You've said that AI is not like is like the air that we breathe. And it's struck out so much because I was thinking, yeah, it is. If you've never known a world without that, then it's not about screen
But how do you advise people that are considering a career right now?
that
I
are
mean,
considering.
I mean, AI is not going to go away. So so if students are coming up to you saying, "Oh my gosh,
Should I
I'm
go to school or not?
I'm afraid. Am I going to have a job?"
Is your question to go to college or not,
Yeah,
or
college or not,
I
or
think the answer is not not yes or no. It's what do you think you're buying when you go to college,
mm,
and because education's a product, and in the past, like you're saying, education was like it's very expensive. The ROI on it made sense. You're paying tuition to get a degree, to get a job, and that all plays out really well. Now, and I know I'm going to get flack for this in academia, I don't necessarily think that that is true. I think that if you are going to university to college to spend 6 figures to get credentials, then that's not necessarily going to give you the ROI that you want. If you are going for more what we were talking about earlier, which is not just for knowledge and information, that's the commodity now, but you're going for context to see the world differently, or the bigger world, as you said, for connections that open doors you might not otherwise have had, and confidence, like you said earlier, the that it can only come from being in an environment where you have to learn how to swim, then I think, yes, then if you're going to look at college as the next step of that, then yes, it is definitely might be the best investment you ever make. If you're just looking to check the box for credentials, you can get credentials and information and knowledge and spend a hell of a lot less uh, on the internet or an experience. So I think it would be the answer is not yes or no. It's ask yourself the question. And just like informing people of AI now, it's not just give me the answer. It's like ask the answer, question the answer, which is why? Why am I doing this? Or where is this coming from? And if you're looking at college today, what I think, regardless of college or not college, what you want is to build the most capital in terms of relationships, resilience, creativity, and I think discernment. I'm calling it discernment. I don't know what else to call it, but it's like the ability to question answers, to understand like okay, this is the information they've given me. Where did it come from? What's the perspective on it? Where are the holes? Is it true? What's the outcome? And teaching our students that I
yeah.
think is key.
Yeah, I think a new question we need to be asking about college is, is the college adjusting? Because the historical role of a college was to be the gatekeeper of information. So you would go to
Yes.
college because there was a special professor who knew this thing and you wanted to sit at their feet and absorb this thing. Well, they're not the gatekeeper of information anymore. And so the role of college has got to evolve. I actually wrote a blog post kind of giving a suggestion about how colleges should evolve. I'm not going to get into that now, but I'll put the link in the show notes that colleges shouldn't be a degree. It should be a subscription that leads to lifelong learning. And
Yeah.
so anyway, so let's move on to the third idea. You look at your, beautiful son and you just think about this world he's entering. What does that mean to you as a parent? What, what are you going to do? What's in your mind? What are you thinking about preparing him for this really dramatic new future?
Yes. So it's funny. I just came back from a trip where I had my toddler on a plane for a very, very, very long time. And what do you do when you have a toddler on a plane is the iPad.
Screens.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I bought one when I was away because I didn't have it on my way there, thinking like, oh, I'm gonna do the screen time thing. And then it hit me, and I was like, you know what? The screen time thing is a thing of the last decade. Let's like screw screen time. Like that's just a part of our life now. So rather than trying to manage screen time as a parent to children, I think now it's how are we using that time? What are you getting from it? Because that's part of their lives now is screen time. And how do we be more human in that screen time? And what are they watching? What are the information that they're getting? And I keep coming back to this word discernment. Like how can we teach um, our children like how to think about the information that they're getting? So rather than like AI all day long can teach math faster than I could ever teach math. It could teach you a language instantly. It can do all of these things. So now, what are we teaching our children? Like you said, we're no longer the gatekeeper of information. Now we're becoming, it's actually a higher order human skill, which is to teach discernment, to teach meaning, to teach values and how to use your imagination and how to ask questions. And I would call that like well I would call that maybe interpretation or discernment, but a good example would be like so a kid asks why. Like I was at a friend's yesterday and the little girl said there was a girl I said, how does your new school start? And she said, there's a girl in my class, she's really mean. I'm like, okay, so a mean girl. So on AI can give you empathy and it can give you an answer, but it can tell you why the girl is mean. But that doesn't give you any of the nuance or the empathy or real understanding. It also doesn't teach how when you're sitting across from a table from someone and you can read your friend's face, they might be saying one thing, but you can read instantly if something else is going on, or how to interpret manipulation versus truth. Like, I think those are the things that are higher order human skills that we can now focus on because AI can do a lot of the information giving, gatekeeping. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I agree. And one of the most profound lessons I received while writing this book, and I just realized that I talked about I have this new book coming out and didn't mention the title. So the title of the book is How AI Changes Our Customers: The Marketing Guide to Humanity's Next Chapter. And I think the biggest concern I have is cognitive offloading. And this comes when people just want the answer. So let me give you like a little example of how this works. So look, I could use AI to write a book. I could just put in a few prompts and it would spit out a book, and it might even fool a few people, whether, I wrote it or the computer wrote it. However, if AI wrote the book, I wouldn't know anything. When I write a book, I internalize this new information. It becomes part of me. It's something I can teach about. It's something I can speak about, something I consult about. And that never goes away. And if you just take the easy, lazy route, you're not going to progress as a human being. So I've come to the conclusion the most important skill we can give our children is curiosity. If you're a curious person, you're going to use AI to learn, right? I'm a curious person. I mean, I've spent almost all my time, like I'll see our lake where I live is filled with these schools of little fish. And I'm like, what are these things doing? Why are there so many of them? What are they eating, right? So AI is teaching me all this stuff. And I'll be able to teach my grandson this stuff because I'm curious and I want him to be curious. And curiosity absolutely 100% can be learned. This is something absolutely parents can help their children with. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're a parent, the next thing you should do is go to AI and say, teach me about curiosity. Give me a plan to embed curiosity in my children. And then the second thing you said, Amanda, that I think is very keen and very smart is this idea of boundaries, right? You're not gonna let your boy spend all day on screens because they're going to lose that human function of being able to have a conversation, being able to look someone in the eye and read those facial cues. And look, this is happening. I have a friend who I feature in this new book. She started a new business to deprogram children.
Wow.
AI is rewiring our children and not in healthy ways. And so she has a business that is booming and flourishing to to undo what the screens are doing and to also coach the parents on what are the boundaries. I mean, because AI and screen time can be helpful, it can be beneficial, but we've got to create the boundaries. We cannot say, oh, AI, you're the new parent, you're the new babysitter. We're going to abdicate our role to this non-human entity because we think that could do it better than us. No, you've got to have boundaries. You've got to have a clear role, and most of all, you've got to. I think curiosity is going to be the most important soft skill for the future of our children.
I love that you said that because as you're talking, I think isn't that the most, I still think that's one of the skills that no matter our time in this world, that is the skill, the ability that has made people successful no matter the technology, no matter it's curiosity. That's how you get forward in the world because it's not a template. It's this ability to continue, like the greatest leaders and the greatest innovators have been curious people. And you take MBA class 101, what is the greatest, ability to be for a leader or for a leader of a company to be stay curious. So I it's interesting that you brought that up as like an AI. I'm like, yeah, that it's almost like the heart of human fluency doesn't change. We just focus more on the human side versus the digital side.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess after writing this book, I really have a lot of hope.
Me
I
too.
think I started writing the book depressed. Uh, because well, look, I mean, it's just like if you read the news, I mean, humans are falling in love with machines. Humans are letting machines make all our decisions, even big emotional decisions, like who do I marry? Where do I go to college? Humans
Yeah.
are starting to look at AI as a religion. And so on this macro level, uh, it's like, wow, I just don't know if I'm liking where this is all going. But then when you get into the good things that are happening, the beautiful things that are happening, the young people who are fighting for their agency, who are fighting for their voice, fighting for their creativity. They're probably the most profound quote in the book came from this young woman. She's a sophomore in college, and I was talking to her about AI, I was at a get together, and I said, "Could I interview you for the book?" Because she had all these interesting ideas about AI. I mean, she uses it for everything. When I interviewed her, she said, "When you asked me to interview me for the book, my first reaction was, well, I should ask ChatGPT to give him the answer." And it made me realize that AI is making me dumber. Where am I in the answer? Where is my humanity in the answer? I have crossed a line and I need to change. I mean, it's just profound. And this is what we're seeing all over the world. But there is a backlash. There is a backlash. And young people today are saying, I'm against this. I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to change in this way. And so I think ultimately the new book is a book of hope.
It's interesting. I see. I think I viewed it like slightly differently, in that I understand the fears, but it's like, and I this was like a year and a half ago. I went to this AI talk at McKinsey, and they were talking about the fears of AI and addressing all these questions, and it just came to me like, any of these questions, any of these fears can be good or like anything new, anything can be good or bad. Religion can be great or bad. Like what you believe in, it's whatever it can be, and a lot of it is in the power of the mindset and who's governing it, who's gatekeeping it, where is it coming from, and so like if it were automatic responses, ask Chat GPT for the answer, that's just shifting the mindset to like, okay, so information now is is not the valuable thing. That's the commodity, that's the product. Where we get to spend our time as humans is to understand like, okay, where is this information coming? Like we the information is coming faster. So we can now question more. We can think differently about it. We can do more things with it.
Well, maybe. And I think that's gonna depend on the person. And the big difference is,
Right.
I mean, I mean, for generations and generations, we've had new technology to help us become, more efficient and stronger and faster and everything. But I don't think psychologically I am much different than my grandfather. I'm probably less bored and more stressed than my grandfather in his generation. But I mean, how he would process information, how he would relate to people is probably not significantly different. That's the difference, is that AI isn't just making us smarter or faster or bolder or more efficient. It's changing our psychology permanently. I mean, it's like it's the cognitive offloading. It's like abdicating a lot of ourselves to a second brain. And that, I mean, we just can't underestimate that. I mean, and it is happening now. This is not science fiction. This is Tuesday. This is next Tuesday. This is happening right now. And it's happening to our colleagues, our coworkers, our children, and our customers. So this is just the beginning, I think.
Right, which then it goes back to the thing of like,
Yeah.
that's what our job as parents and leaders and educators, to get in front of, because it's the environment changes psychology. What happens
Yeah.
in someone's life changes psychology. Like what you deal with, if you deal with an entirely different tragic accident than your grandfather, that's just going to change your psychology very differently than his as well. So it's the world that's changing, and I think it's how we I think it really comes down to like, it's our time right now as educators, as parents, as mentors, as leaders, to take the take the reins and like frame the mind that this with curiosity, with questioning,
Yeah, but
with
to some extent, but how are you going to do that with your customers? Right? I mean, it's happening as a business leader. You're not going to be able to make your customers more curious. Now, I do have
right.
some little like tricks in the book. So, I mean, the
That's
big
yeah,
idea is we do have some agency maybe in our own families, but the big idea is we have to be aware that the psychology of the world is is changing.
right.
So
And as
again,
marketers, that's a different lens, right? Yeah, exactly. As marketers, it's a different
yeah.
lens. It's thinking, okay, so what are they coming? What is the psychology of the customer, and how has it changed? I thought that that's a different question to me than how to advise my kids.
Oh, right. But yeah.
But yeah,
All
it's
right. So Amanda, thanks so much for the keen insights today. And I'm sure this is just the beginning of the conversation of AI psychology and how it's changing all of us.
I
We'll
want
see
to
you
hear.
next time on the Marketing Companion.